Now, Tess, I've been asking our guests this season a warm-up question, if you will, that nobody has been able to prep for.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Describe what a B Corp is in 5 words or less.
A for-profit business with high social impact. Oh, it's more than 5 words.
That was close. Welcome back to Getting Down to Business, a B Corp podcast that takes you inside the B Corp movement one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Lauren Everett, and today we are breaking down B Corp certification with Tess and Briana, my beautiful co-host. Welcome, y'all.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Beautiful to have you all. Briana is a B-Labber. She is our Senior Brand Marketing and Partnerships Manager. And Tess Hart is co-founder of Triple Bottom Brewing, a certified B Corp brewery in Philadelphia that's been making waves with its commitment to employee welfare and community engagement.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, are y'all ready to get down to business?
Yes, do it.
All right, let's get into it. Tess, why don't you start us off with, first, how long you've been a B Corp and what was your journey like into B Corp certification?
Sure. So we became a B Corp in April 2021. So about 4 years. And I always knew we wanted to be a B Corp. And that was one of the reasons I loved the idea of business, was seeing what B Corps could do in the world. So we built the brewery with some of the B Corp goals already in mind. And then once we turned 1 year, which was 6 months into the pandemic, we had, it's been a wild journey the whole time. And that first year was especially crazy. But once we turned 1 year old, that's when you're eligible to start thinking about the B Corp process. And so we started that journey then, and it took us, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 8 months to go through the whole thing. Lots of different priorities come up for a business owner. So some things went on pause, but ultimately it was a really great learning opportunity, honestly. I feel like I learned more about the business and know the business better as a result of that process.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like certifying during the pandemic?
It was interesting because, when we opened Triple Bottom in September 2019, we had really lofty goals of the way our business would grow from a sales perspective, which then enables the social side of our work to grow. And our business had been completely shut down. We were an in-person tap room relying on people being able to convene, and we didn't reopen until late in 2021. So going through the B Corp process, we were actually in a state of survival and adaptation, trying to keep our commitment to our team throughout. So it was very humbling in that it was a very clear illustration of, what we thought we would be doing and where we were. But I also think it was really empowering to be able to say, we have been through hell, we are currently going through hell, and look at all that we have still done and all the ways that even if we haven't committed or if we haven't been able to fulfill exactly a certain tactic, we have fulfilled our values and lived up to them still in different ways, and continue to find new ways to bring that to life, even though the business looks super different than we thought it would.
Yeah.
That's a super challenging time already, and we know that B Corp certification by itself is already really difficult.
Yeah.
So what would you say was the hardest part about getting certified?
The hardest part was just making sure to carve out the time. We were lucky to start with a group of students from a local university who wanted to partner with us on this journey and start the process for us. And so they were able to get things set up. But I think the thing about B Corp that's so cool is that it's really intimate. It's a really intimate look into the business, which requires the most senior leadership to do the work. So being able to dedicate that time was tough when, I was being pulled in so many different directions. But at the same time, you get your person who's evaluating, and they sort of become a cheerleader and an accountability captain for you. And that was actually really nice because I didn't have one. I didn't have someone being remember these goals? Let's keep moving. Let's keep timelines. It was all up to me. So it was kind of a double-edged sword of needing to find the time, but then having that support that was created by that.
That's awesome. I love to hear that you got students who we're willing to help.
Yeah.
Shout out to our students, all of our
Oh my gosh,
B Corp
they
clinics.
they keep us moving. It's really cool.
Now, Tess, were there any unexpected insights or revelations that you had about your business operations as you were going through certification?
Yes, I think that one was just how much of what we did wasn't actually institutionalized into like the nuts and bolts of the organization. We have a commitment to our team to pay at least $15 an hour, but that looks different depending on what role you're in. So our bartenders come in at $10 an hour and plus tips, but if they don't make that additional 5 in tips, we make up the difference. And I will say, like, that in itself is rare, like a $10 base wage. It feels like it is not even enough, but the tipped minimum wage in Pennsylvania is $2.83 an hour. So when we look at us compared to our competitors, our payroll costs are already 3 times as much. That commitment is so core to Triple Bottom that we will take care of you, that we're not going to rely on customers to fill in the gaps. But we hadn't written it anywhere. We just said it when we were onboarding people. And so it was moments like that where I realized, like, we have to write this down. This has to go in our handbook. Otherwise, like, it literally doesn't count for B Corp to get those points. But it's also something that, like, theoretically we could change our minds on, and there would be no one the wiser who could hold us accountable. So that need to, again, it's about time. Take that time to build the infrastructure beyond just the words that we say to our team, you know?
I think that's a great example of how we hope that the B Impact Assessment will really help companies during their certification process, even if they don't get certified. Do you have any other examples of how the assessment and certification process really helped inspire changes in practices or policies at Triple Bottom?
Yeah, I think another one was just the encouragement to measure. And this is actually since getting certified because, in the certification process, it's great. You can see like what you've done, but you also have the opportunities to set goals. And we really realized like, we're doing a lot on community and on our team in terms of like the B Corp categories. But we have a triple bottom line, and our environmental work really is, it's checking some boxes, but there's so much more opportunities for us. And it starts with measurement, and we just hadn't even built the infrastructure to do that. And so since then, one of our amazing bartenders has taken it upon herself to like figure out the measurement piece of so much of what we do, from our energy use to our waste collection, and finding new waste management partners who can actually help us quantify how much of what type of waste we're diverting from landfills and things like that. So that's been an area that we are like continuing to chip away at. Just by the nature of the questions that the certification asks, it helps you realize like, oh, that is a category that I need to think about that I hadn't really carved out for myself, that now I can measure. So that's another way that it has been really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we're going to get more into how your business has been impacted by becoming a certified B Corp, but I'm interested to hear what the personal influence has been since you have become a certified B Corp. Has there been any changes in your personal perspective and what it means to run a sustainable business?
I love that question. Because I think honestly for me, the personal came first.
Okay.
Coming into building a business with this heart, with this mission, it can be brutally difficult. And especially when the pandemic hits. And if you are the founder, the leader, there's no one on your team who's going to say, good job. And so for me, earning that certification was an incredible like moral boost to validate that we were walking the walk and not just talking the talk. And when I put things into the world as offerings, I often have insecurities of, is this enough? Is this really making a difference? And I am not someone who likes to like pat myself on the back and say like, yeah, great job. But without that sort of sense of motivation and encouragement, things can sometimes feel really hard. And so B Corp and getting that the B certification really was that external validation that just like gave me the opportunity to honor the work that we are doing and have been doing and the time that I've put into it. So for me personally, it was really important and continues to be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I remember when we talked before we recorded, and you were talking about just the personal impact that it's had on you despite the pandemic, which I can imagine for businesses that was just a very, very hard time. I would love to hear how the certification impacted your employees as well. Is there any type of pride or resonance with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to be honest, a lot of them didn't know about B Corp before we
Okay.
went through the certification, but some did, and it's definitely attracted some employees. But then once people learned about it on our team, there is definitely a sense of pride. It's like an incredible talking point that they have when they are behind the bar or at a farmer's market. It's like we're woman owned, which is super rare in our industry, and we're the only B Corp brewery in the state of Pennsylvania. And it's like this very easy, validating point of like, this is something that makes us really different.
Yeah.
And our team is majority women or non-binary folks also. And so that is like the fact that we're women owned, this sort of like 1-2 punch in a way of like a way that makes us stand out is something that people really like can rally behind.
Yeah.
And then for customers too, I mean, I think it has made a big difference. The little stamp on our cans is such a powerful signal. And I remember being in our space, and we do a lot of events, like private events, and groups come in sometimes to like see our space and shop around, and they were walking through and getting a tour, and I heard one of them be like, "And they're a B Corp." And I was like, "All right, it's working. We love to hear that, yes."
You're speaking our language. That's our favorite thing.
Yeah,
to
the
hear.
whisper of it was great.
So yeah, how would you describe Triple Bottom's workplace and culture, especially how B Corp certification has maybe impacted those things?
Yeah, I think our culture is really important to us, and it's something that I'm really proud of and also really aware that it's always a work in progress and that we always have to nurture it and help it to grow and thrive. But our culture is just this, it's amazing. It's this beautiful culture of like of joy and collaboration and just incredible kindness and respect for all different types of people. And, we have an amazing general manager who really embodies that and I think helps to instill that in new team members. But it's also something that because we've created it, because it now exists, it's something that we can communicate even in staff interviews. And so it's just like constantly being reinforced. And I think, again, a lot of the way that we've now sort of institutionalized that culture is because of the B Corp certification, because I think we had done a really great job of, building an incredibly diverse team and making sure to set the expectations that this is a place of learning and growth and we want everyone to contribute, and then like figuring out like, okay, what are the steps we actually took to do that, and like we should write those down. That has been something that B Corp has helped with, so I think it just sort of further cements it. And when the new employee gets their handbook, all this language is in there now that wasn't before, that really, that I think people got by osmosis a little bit, but now it's right there for them. But I think in general, and it's funny, I was just training a bunch of new apprentices today and going through our handbook. So it's very fresh, going through our values and going through the codes of conduct and all of that. And it kept coming back to, it's a culture of kindness and respect for anyone, for the person on the street who just needs a glass of water and a place to catch their breath, to someone who's never had beer before, right? We're not beer snobs. It's cool. Like, come on in. The space is yours. And then I think and I hope that our team feels that way too.
Yeah, I love that. A culture of kindness and respect.
Yeah.
And I also think in the way that you even curated the actual space is sort of different, right, than
Yeah.
your standard brewery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love breweries. Obviously, I got into this work, but there is a like stereotypical brewery
Yes.
experience, right? And it's kind of dungeony or like it's like dark and cool and industrial, and it's mostly men inside. And we really picked a place with like huge windows, and it's bright and airy, and there's like really colorful art on the walls, and there are plants everywhere, and the bar's like this beautiful like round green bar, so it's like kind of soft and inviting. People who walk in, they're like, "Oh, a woman designed this place," and they're like, "Yeah, sure, yes, I guess so." It was very intentionally done, not only because we wanted to be distinctive from other breweries in terms of like the actual way you experience engaging in our community, but also because we have built a team of people who come from a lot of different experiences, including experiences in the carceral system. And we really wanted our space to feel radically different from spaces that had brought them trauma. And so that meant going with brightness and airiness and creating a sense of flow and movement and color that was not going to be triggering in any way. Being aware of the music, all of that, it has gone into cultivating this experience.
That's beautiful. So much power in design.
So much power in design, and there is a lot of intention with, it sounds like, every aspect of the company. And I want to hit on the employee and the culture aspect and hear from you on why Triple Bottom Brewing has invested in fair chance hiring and specifically how it aligns with your company's values.
Yeah, absolutely. I came to this idea of Triple Bottom Brewing Company with the vision that everyone in every community should have the opportunity to craft something great. And with the belief that breweries are these amazing community spaces. Like they are spaces where things are created, beer is brewed, and there's a lot of like marketing and design. There's a lot of like creativity in that. But there are also spaces where connections and community are created. Like people go in looking for a story, not just a drink. I think because they want to learn about the beer, but then they start connecting with each other. And so that idea of uplifting people through community has been really important. And then another key piece of that really ties in is this idea that a job can change a life, and that all of us should have the opportunity to craft a great career. And so many people all over the country, and Philly is really a ground zero point for reentry in terms of people. The proportion of our community members who have experienced time in the carceral system is extremely high. So there's so many people in our communities who are barred from that opportunity to craft a career for themselves, even just make a living, like not even crafting a career. And I think we can probably all relate to like the sense of like pride and dignity with a job well done, and with seeing and being seen in that professional space. And I think it is incumbent upon us as business owners to drive those opportunities in our communities. And so Triple Bottom from day one has been a fair chance business and has very intentionally and radically been inclusive of people who are justice impacted or have experienced housing insecurity. We have some amazing nonprofit partners who help us meet our team members. That model has evolved and grown over time, actually. So, we had a founding team that was a mix of people who were like industry pros, and then also people who had spent decades incarcerated and lost so much of their lives to that experience. And they came together in this really beautiful way to open Triple Bottom together. And we just this past couple of months actually launched an apprenticeship program to really expand on that work.
Okay, so Tess, you were talking about training apprentices before you got here, and I would love to hear about the program and what apprentices are getting out of it. So skills, certifications, and how do you go about measuring the success of your apprentice program?
We're still figuring out that last
Okay.
piece. But I'll share what we've done so far. So we created, it's called the Future of Service Apprenticeship Program, which is an imagination of what the future of the service industry can be in Philadelphia and hopefully nationally ultimately, but that it is inclusive and equitable and effective, that we have a really highly capable workforce that represents the city that we love and the city that we are all here to bring to life through our work. Especially the hospitality industry is so much about bringing our communities to life. The apprenticeship is a 16-week program that is paid. We have 12 apprentices in each cohort, and actually our second cohort just started yesterday. So we're just riding a lot of good energy and also the nervousness of new things and all of that. But 12 apprentices go through this program, and 2 days a week are in sort of a classroom setting, which is our tap room. And those days we're really focused on transferable skills, life skills, and certifications, as well as leadership development. I think that's something that surprised me about this first cohort, was really realizing like folks are coming here, they don't just want a job that they can clock in and clock out of. Like, they want to really contribute and be seen, and there's so much potential that we can offer in terms of ways to support the strength and power that they already have. And so certifications that folks get are like Serve Safe for responsible food handling and responsible alcohol management program, but they also get CPR, and we also do like sexual harassment trainings, and really trying to prepare people who have been excluded from the workplace to enter with confidence in themselves and not just have like skills to check a box, but to really like know how to handle any situation and be graceful and competent and proud in that situation and in what they can contribute. So some, key things that we work on is it's always communication. It's always how do we handle conflict and feedback, but that gets progressively harder. Like, I'm certainly still working on that.
Aren't we all? Yeah.
And so we just run through so many different situations, and everything is a learning opportunity. And then in addition to the 2 days in the classroom, there's 2 days on the job. And so they're working at Triple Bottom. So when they graduate after 16 weeks, they didn't just complete, a service outreach training. They have job experience at an industry company that is known in our community. And so we can vouch for them. How did they handle customers behind the bar? How did they handle this high volume event? How did they handle being sort of tossed into this new situation and having to navigate it? And we staircase up to that throughout the 16 weeks, and do a lot of work just sort of gently expanding people's networks and experiences of different types of culture so that they can feel comfortable in a lot of different work environments, and also so that they can learn what they're actually looking for and what they actually like. Because I think that's something that often gets forgotten in the workforce is like people have their own goals and preferences. They're not just like looking for anything. I mean, some folks maybe are like, I just need to pay the bills, give me anything. But most have something that they actually want to do. And so this program is really about unearthing that and giving people opportunities to try lots of different things. So at the end, they can be like, this worked, this didn't. I really want to move in this direction. And we can then figure out how to help get them there. And then you asked about measurement. And I think right now, our first cohort graduated 2 months ago. So we're 2 months out, and we're looking at how many folks are employed. I will say 2 are employed permanently at Triple Bottom, which is so exciting. They're just like fully part of the team now, and one is now coming back into this cohort as a mentoring coach. What, type of wages are they making? How are they feeling about their work? Were there any unresolved things, like this person like needed a driver's license? Like, are there things that we're still trying to tie up and tracking that? And it's been great to hear success stories. Like, we just reached out to someone about a job because we knew he'd gotten one, but we're like, you'd be great at this one too, so just wanted to check in. He's like, I actually just got promoted to supervisor. And we're like, okay, hey, that's amazing. So those kinds of things. And then what we're trying to figure out is how do we measure the fuzzier stuff, like the sense of belonging and the sense of like personal power that I think employment can foster, but that and that I think can be really life-changing. This certainly has been life-changing for me, but that's really hard to quantify. So that's an area that we're still trying to figure out. Where do we quite nail that down?
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On starting a new cohort and the success of your first cohort. I know that you are still working out some of the measurable things, but you've named so many points of success from just one cohort. I think that deserves. I would clap, but I know that we're recording.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm curious to hear about challenges with working with formerly incarcerated individuals from your experience and their reentry into the workforce. How are you addressing those challenges with your hiring initiatives?
Yeah, 2 really come to mind. The first is just building trust. I think very understandably, people who have been incarcerated don't trust systems because the systems out there were designed to fail them.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that we are part of a system or have systems in place and processes in place, like it takes a long time to trust that. And I think there can be an attitude for folks coming in of like, okay, yeah, I hear you, but like, let's see, like, prove it to me. And that really just takes time and patience and willingness from both of us, to both us as the employer and then the apprentices or employees, to navigate troubles together and to stay in communication. I think one thing we've found is like, if you can hang with us, if you can like stick around for like 2 weeks, then we're good. It's those first 2 weeks of like, oh, I'm going to be late, but that means I might as well just not show up because they're probably going to fire me because systems always exclude me. That's where it's really hard. And so it's on us as the employer to then reach out and be like, we want you here. Like, it's okay if you're late. Next time you can tell us in this way, but we want you here and we're holding this door open. And sometimes it takes a couple of phone calls, or, it really takes dedication. It's that one-on-one trust building to show that we mean what we say. So that's one big piece of it. And then the other, I think, is just communication in both a technical way and in that soft skill way. Like, folks who have spent decades inside missed cell phones. So there's literally like this whole new world that they're navigating, and a whole new pattern of ways that we have established is the norm for communicating together. Whether it's I text you when I'm on my way, like, I never even did that as a kid. Like, yeah, I'm on my way. It's like, I will see you in 2 weeks at this time, right? And so that has been something that we have to figure out how to navigate. And, in this cohort, I know we have someone who doesn't do email. And so we're really figuring out like, yes, we will get you there, but for now, what are the ways that we can make sure we're reaching you? And so then, yeah, those patterns of communication, breaking through that frustration when there's all these different challenges and new things to learn, that is something that we definitely have to like work on extra hard.
Yeah. So I feel like community is really central in everything that you all do at Triple Bottom. How would you say that your fair trends hiring and just Triple Bottom as a whole is really impacting and affecting the Philly community on a larger level?
I can certainly say how I hope it is.
It's a big question. I'm like, I'm throwing it at you.
I hope, first of all, that there's, that direct impact on our team members who are given an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise have, and an opportunity like in a beautiful space that like feels really uplifting and empowering. And I think that in itself has ripple effects, because then they go home to their communities and they have hope and they have confidence, and that affects their children and their families, but also the people that they see at school pickup and drop off and all of that. So it's just little seeds of hope and joy that I think are being spread one by one, person by person. But then I have the hope that what we are doing at Triple Bottom can be in some way a model for other businesses to join us in this work. Philadelphia is the poorest big city in the country and has been for a long time. And there are so many amazing people and organizations in this fight to lift Philadelphia, to lift everyone in Philadelphia into prosperity rather than just the select few who are already rocketing there. And I think we see most of that work being done in the nonprofit space. And thank goodness for them. And I don't think we're really going to make a crack or a dent in poverty in Philadelphia without the help of businesses realizing that we have so much economic power, both in terms of who we employ, but also the buying choices that we make, sort of keeping money local. And that's really hard, but I think it's really important. And I think what we have seen at Triple Bottom is that you can build an incredible, talented, like very hardworking team that looks different than maybe you thought it would look. And so it is my hope that we make it seem possible. And I absolutely acknowledge that there are things that are really hard, but I would love to see more businesses commit to paying a decent wage to their team and not relying solely on tips. And I would love to see more businesses building these like really cool creative partnerships with nonprofits to meet possible employees, or even just to use their spaces to host events that uplift the community, which is something that we do at Triple Bottom. And in this moment in our history when, we haven't talked about all the crazy things happening in Washington, but they're there.
Mhm.
And many of the people that we care about in our community are at risk, even more so because of various executive orders that are happening. And so we're really thinking about how can we use our physical space that we've created to offer support to activism and other ways that, mutual aid, other ways that people are uplifting their communities. So I think we've really tried to get creative and like to learn a lot from the folks who are, we make beer and we do a lot of other things, but like really we make beer. And so we want to look to the people who are leading in these individual spaces and see how we can elevate what they're doing. That is a ripple that I hope to see and that I think in some ways has already happened. We get the occasional email of like, I know you offer health insurance to everyone on your team. Like, how do you do that? Because it's really intimidating as a small business to figure that out. And that's so cool. That's one business that's offering that safety net in a way. So again, it's bit by bit, but I think we see these little one-on-one interactions that can transform communities. And then I think we see like the possibility and the hope for real change in how business leaders approach their opportunities and their responsibilities in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really, say is a value of being in the B Corp community is the opportunity to collaborate and partner with other businesses. And I think, what I'm hearing from you is like you're hoping to inspire other businesses. And I'm sort of curious too, are there any businesses right now who are also doing Fair Chance who maybe either you've inspired or who inspired you when you were first starting your apprenticeship program and really implementing it in Triple Bottom?
Yes, I think one of my good friends, Kimberly McLawn, who runs Grant Boulevard. She and I met when we were both starting our respective businesses. We were both judges of a student like social enterprise pitch competition and just sort of connected. I remember her daughter was really young and was like reading chapter books behind us. And so we've been on this journey side by side and she has certainly inspired me as she handles all the challenges at similar stages that Triple Bottom is. So there is a deep sense of community and collaboration between our two businesses. And then there's a few others in Philly. One that has been doing this work for a much longer time. That makes him sound really old. He's not. But for longer than Triple Bottom is Wash Cycle Laundry, which is also a Fair Chance business. And so I looked to their founder, Gabriel, for a lot of inspiration and then real tactical advice. And then one that I think planted that first seed for me is it's actually not a business, but it brings businesses together. It's called Red F, and it's a funder of employment social enterprises, which Triple Bottom, I guess, would fall into that category. And so that has built a really strong community of both for-profit and nonprofit enterprises that are doing this Fair Chance work. And there are definitely some other B Corps within that group. So there's a lot of overlap. But I think even beyond looking at other Fair Chance businesses, there are a lot of other businesses in Philly, and many of them are B Corps. Look at Saxby's or look at Shift Capital that think differently about our calling to put a product out in the world. And just that like different way of thinking has so much trickle down into like every single business decision we make. And so finding that solidarity, it may be about like I'm approaching an issue and you've never experienced this issue before, but I want to hear how you think about issues in general because you're doing it in a way that many other business leaders aren't. And so that is something that, that type of collaboration is ongoing always. And I'm really grateful. You have this sense that like business is so cutthroat, and that has not been my experience. And I think in a way the pandemic helped remove a lot of that because people had to really team up to survive. But even before the pandemic hit, I think we were really leaning into collaboration, and it has definitely only made us stronger.
Love that.
Yeah, I think us B Labbers here, or get the question a lot of like, what is the ROI? What is the return on investment for B Corp certification? And I think you've hit on two of the biggest returns that we see, which is community and collaboration. And I'd
Yeah.
love to hear from you on what is it like to be a part of the B Corp community here in Philly. I heard that B Corp Phillies show up very strong and they show up often. So what has that been like for you and Triple Bottom?
Yeah, the B Corp community here is, I will say it is small but mighty, and it is definitely growing, which is very cool to see. But it becomes just like, it's like familiar faces who then become friends, because you just keep seeing each other. And at first, it's like we just like to go to the same types of events. We're a part of the same types of networks, but then it actually starts to form its own B Corp community. I was just on a call last week in preparation for an event we're doing in collaboration with Philly's B Local chapter next week. It's like, oh yeah, look at all these familiar faces who I just really love to work with. And like anytime I get to have a conversation with you, I'm just like a little bit amped. And so that feels good. Philly has this great reputation of being like a small town, but a giant city. And it's true in at least in like the social impact space, but I think really any space. Like once you get your one inroad, then you're just connected to everyone. And everyone, I think because Philly has faced so many challenges, everyone's really rooting for Philly to like do something great and for great people to do good things here. And B Corps really embody that. And so there's just sense of like we're rooting for each other. And like, yeah, you're having a big event, we'll show up. Like let's build this together. And it's comforting, it's inspiring, and it's motivating to have this community around us. Absolutely.
I love that.
I love that too. And, I think one thing that's always really interesting is Philly in many ways is also the birthplace of the B Corp movement and B Corp
Yeah.
community. So you guys have something really unique happening here too in that way.
Yeah, right. I think the first B Corp was in media. Is that right? I'm not sure. I
No,
feel
that's a good.
yours.
Now you're quizzing me now.
Oh.
Yeah, I think On Tears was the first,
think
but I
On
don't
Tears
want to say the
was.
wrong
I
thing.
mean, Philly's the birthplace of a lot of things. Let's talk about democracy, all that good stuff. But yeah, also there's maybe an extra sense of pride because like
Yeah.
this is home base for these big ideas, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tess, I would love for us to look ahead. What is next for Triple Bottom in terms of expanding and deepening its impact on the community and its employees?
Whew. We just sort of hit this like trial period of this first big expansion of our mission, which is the launch of this apprenticeship program. Our vision with that program is that we have at least 3 cohorts a year. This calendar year, we'll have 2. We're still giving ourselves some breathing room in between cohorts to continue to learn and iterate. But then we hope to be able to, one, build a community of practice among employers that sort of adds on to the apprenticeship program, because I think when we look at workforce development, there is so much focus on the gaps that we need to fill in the employee experience and skill set. And I really think that employers have some work to do too.
Yes.
And often want to do that work, but just don't know where to start.
Mhm.
And so we hope to build a community of practice for employers who want to take up this work of creating opportunities for folks overcoming major barriers. And, we've made a ton of mistakes, so we can help you navigate those. But like, let's do this together and grow it, because as we grow that, we then grow job opportunities. And, we were just talking about Philadelphia being a birthplace of B Corp and a birthplace of democracy. 2026 is our 250th anniversary as a country. And so Philly is like going wild. It is going to be bonkers. And so I have this vision of like, how amazing would it be if the industry that's really going to host so much of these celebrations, the hospitality industry, actually celebrates freedom in a real meaningful way. Like, let's talk about what freedom looks like today. It's like economic freedom. It's freedom from mass incarceration. There's so much work we still have to do, but so many ways that a program like ours is chipping away at that and trying to advance freedom. And so that's my hope, is that we can play a role in expanding this idea beyond just Triple Bottom and beyond these one-off job placements to be an industry in Philly that wants to embrace this, and then go from there. Let's talk about other industries. Let's talk about other cities. I think it is rare for a for-profit business to be this deeply involved in like this direct service job training work. Usually that's housed in a nonprofit. But I think there's something really powerful about it being in a for-profit because it does give that like real meaningful job experience to folks. And I think it also gives a really different sense of dignity to the people in our program because they work at Triple Bottom. They're not like receiving services. They're working at Triple Bottom, and that changes how they want to show up every day in a way that is really powerful. And so I do think that there is something about this model, and we're certainly not the only for-profit business in the country doing this work, but I think that together we can really start making changes into how we think about who gets opportunity in our country, not just in Philadelphia. And if we can be a part of that conversation in some way and help push the needle in some way, that's where I hope we can go.
Yeah, I love that you offered an invitation to collaborate. You put out calls to action for people, and there is such a deep sense of hope of where not only Triple Bottom and Philly are going, but B Corps in business in general. So, for people to answer your invitation, where can they find you?
Find us on Instagram at Triple Bottom Brewing. Find us on our website, triplebottombrewing.com. And then you can always just email us, hello@triplebottombrewing.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, Briana, for helping me co-host. If you are a business interested in measuring your impact, or if you want to learn more about B Corp certification, visit wearebcorps.com, and we will see you next time. Bye, y'all.